Hi, I'm Mike Rizzo.
And I'm Michelle Rizzo.
And this is Northwest Brew Talk. Welcome to Northwest Brew Talk, episode number 52. Each and every week, we promote the Washington brewing industry by talking to those people involved and drinking Washington beer. With over 300 breweries, we try to highlight as many as possible every episode. If you're new to the show, we suggest you check out our back catalog with some great interviews and lots of Washington beer. This week, we have an interview with Fremont Brewing, our brew news, and local music from Mother Crone.
If you have any comments or questions, send us an email to nwbrewtalk@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at nwbrewtalk and on Facebook at facebook.com/nwbrewtalk. If you like the show and want to support us, why not become a patron? With a donation, we offer everything from guest hosting a show to a copy of our upcoming book, Washington Beer. Head over to nwbrewtalk.com for more details. And to start the show, let's open our first beer. We've got Reuben's Brews Amarillo Fresh Hop Pale Ale. Reuben's Brews is located in Seattle and open to all ages. They are open 7 days a week. The Amarillo Fresh Hop Pale Ale has ABV 6%, 35 IBUs, and an untapped rating of 3.9.
Smells really good.
Smells good, and that's a pretty high rating, too, on Untapped.
3.9?
3.9.
Oh, that is very high, because last week I think we had a 3.81 or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, this is good.
Smells good.
I think this is the...
Wow, that tastes good, too.
Do you have an IBU on it, or no? Because it's pretty mild.
35. Yep, 35 IBUs.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty mild. But that's good. I think there's only the second fresh hop one we've tried.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm pretty sure we've tried one other one.
Yeah, we tried a Fremont. But yeah, I like that. It's mild, golden color. Honestly, it would look like almost any beer that you would buy in a supermarket. But the flavor is nothing like that.
Oh, no.
No, this is really good.
It's a good beer.
Yeah. Reuben's Brews is cool. It's a nice place, too. You can sit in their tap room and stare at all their giant tanks and eat pretzels.
With your children.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Oh, and they have that giant screen, too. They were playing, we were watching soccer.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We were there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good beer. I like that one. All right. And now, on to the brew news.
Topping this week's news, the third annual Hop Mob Roadshow will kick off at Browers Cafe on Thursday, February 4th. The term Hop Mob refers to a robust collection of triple IPAs. These super hoppy beers typically weigh in at more than 10% alcohol by volume. Wow. The roadshow takes place over 10 days, and as of now, there are 35 participating breweries. Ghostfish Brewing in Seattle will celebrate their first anniversary this Saturday, February 6, 2016. This special event will take place from 2 to 10 p.m. and is open to the public 21 and older. In addition to an amazing lineup of beers, Woodshop Barbecue and Halava Falafel food trucks will be there. In honor of this momentous event, Ghostfish Brewing will be releasing a limited quantity of their first anniversary Russian Imperial Stout in 22-ounce bottles.
Nice. It's a new year. And the awards have started. The Best of Craft Beer Awards took place in Bend, Oregon last weekend, and quite a few Washington breweries walked away with medals. Starting off, we've got Populux Brewing in Seattle winning a gold in American Amber for their Citra Red. Reuben's Brews took silver for their Hop Tropic in American IPA and gold for their Goes. Aslan Brewing took silver for American Stout in that category. Snoqualmie Brewing's Haystack Hefe took silver in American Wheat. Wander Brewing took silver for their Belgian Double Together and bronze in the mixed style for Global Mutt. Lewitt Brewing took silver for their 216 Irish Red Ale. Drew Brew's Kolsch took gold in that category and silver for Schwarzbier. The Water Street took gold in smoked beer for their smoked Scotch Ale, and Fremont took gold in specialty wood-aged beer for Bourbon Abominable. That's a lot of awards, And it wasn't just considering it was in Bend. It wasn't just Bend. In local Northwest, Sam Adams won a few awards. So there was quite a few breweries involved, and it was good to see that a bunch of Washington breweries won.
Absolutely. Congratulations to all of them.
Yes.
Also, at the Great Alaskan Beer and Barley Wine Festival a week ago, Black Raven Brewing tied for second place with Lagunitas Brewing for Old Bird Brain. According to Washington Beer Blog, they took first place in 2011 and 2012, and in 2013, third place for Old Bird Brain. Congrats to all the winners today. Last weekend at Strange Brewfest, as voted on with your tokens, first place, Seven Seas Brewing. Second place, Pike Brewing. Third place, Seven Seas Brewing. And, as voted on by ballot, the coveted Strangest Brew was awarded to Bainbridge Brewing for their Fuck It, I'm Going to Strange Brewfest.
All right.
Woo! A couple weeks back, it was announced that Reuben's Brews in Seattle was chosen to make the official Seattle Beer Week beer. The brewery will debut Daily Pale, a Session India Pale Ale. The beer will be available in 12-ounce cans starting mid-April 2016 and on draft around the city as part of the May 12th through 22nd Seattle Beer Week festivities. The official tapping ceremony of Daily Pale, which kicks off Seattle Beer Week, will be on May 12th at the brewery's tasting room. Thanks to thefullpint.com. Brewers Cafe in Seattle will have its 14th annual Hard Liver Barley Wine Festival on Saturday, February 27th. This is a celebration of the amazing style of beer with over 50 barley wine old ales on draft starting at 11 a.m. There is usually a line for this much-anticipated event, so get there early.
The 2016 Washington Cask Beer Festival takes place on March 19th at Seattle Center Exhibition Hall. Tickets for this event are on sale now. There will be over 100 beers from over 40 breweries, and all of the participating breweries are members of the Washington Brewers Guild, a nonprofit organization. Tickets are $40 in advance, and there will be 2 sessions available. Visit WashingtonBrewersGuild.org for more details or to get your tickets. Lastly, Time.com had a story on January 29th about how Kroger Company, one of the largest grocery chains in the world, plans on letting a private distributor oversee what beer and wines get shelf space in their store. Kroger says it will help them better rearrange store shelves for trending craft beers and wines, but the plan could backfire if smaller breweries can't afford to pay for the services of the distributor. Locally, Fred Meyer and QFC are prominent stores that would be implementing these plans if they go through. Kroger says the distributor, Southern Wine and Spirits, would be unbiased, unlike the way Anheuser-Busch currently dictates shelf space. Paul Getza, director of the Brewers Association, told the Wall Street Journal what stops every other grocer from doing the same thing. Then it costs a lot of money to get on the shelves. We will be watching this developing story. And that's it for the Brew News this week.
Northwest Brew Talk. Northwest Brew Talk. Send us an email to nwbrewtalk@gmail.com. Or if you've not yet subscribed to our podcast, why not do it now? It's free, available anywhere you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Podbean, and Stitcher. If you like us, a review or rating would be really appreciated. But make sure to tell your friends about Northwest Brew Talk.
Definitely. We had a great interview last week with one of the craft beer pioneers. And this week, we have an interview with one of the stars of the current craft beer scene, Matt Lincecum from Fremont Brewing. One of the best interviews we've had, we think, because he was very honest and pretty much told it like it is. So let's go talk to Matt. When you decided to start the brewery, the economy was in shambles.
Yeah.
So what made you think it was the right time to do that?
It's really the most exciting time to jump into. I think to jump into something new is when no one else is doing it. So that to me is fun. I'd rather be fording uncharted rivers than joining the crew that's the throng that's running across that one river. It's kind of what's happening now. You see,
yeah.
And it's just insane because the model's been proven enough. It's just you can have a lot more confidence that you're going to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But that was part of the reason. The other part of the reason really is still true to this day, which is I honestly just love what I do. I love being a part of the craft brewing community and making beer and building this company. And there is no right time and there is no wrong time to start a company with a good idea. You just need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
That's,
found...
that said, there are times that are easier and harder.
Sure.
So that also said,
Right.
it was a horridly awful time to start a company.
Sure.
From the perspective of liquidity and capital markets and credit. So we have no money. We're not wealthy people. We had $10,000. That's it. And all my investors went away.
Yeah.
Because the market crashed. And I couldn't get a credit card. I mean, couldn't get anything. So, and that was the situation for the first almost 4 years of this company. Was we had no credit.
Right.
Zero credit. I was able to get a credit card with $5,000, and we were, generating a couple million in revenue with no debt.
Really?
And I still couldn't get the one offer I got, and I'll say their name because they deserve to have this kind of ignominy. Was Chase Bank.
Really?
We were doing our business with them, and I asked them for a line of credit, $50,000. Not much.
Yeah.
I'm depositing, $70,000 a week with no debt in my company name. I own all this equipment free and clear, and I asked them for a line of credit to see where we can go. And they come back after asking me, to show them all my financial information, my personal financial information, which is an awful thing to have to do, but you do it for business. And they made me this deal. For 8% interest, they would give me a $50,000 line of credit. But to secure it, I'd have to put $50,000 in cash in a new Chase checking account at 0% interest, and they would hold that the entire life of the company. And it was one of those things like, now, one of us is being funny or one of us is being stupid. I feel neither funny nor stupid right now.
Yeah.
So you're funny and dumb. That's just bad in every way. And they were dead serious about that's their best offer.
Wow.
And that's what it was like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a terrible time to start a company from that perspective. From that perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah. Anyway, it's worked out. So.
Yeah, definitely. So, you were a lawyer prior.
Chase Bank.
You were a lawyer prior to starting the business.
Yes. And still a recovering attorney at this
Okay.
point.
Now, you had clients in the brewing industry?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, through the law firms I worked.
Okay. So did that, was that something, well, you were a home brewer too, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that...
We're all homebrewers.
Yeah, it was probably a little different. Like today, everybody's a home brewer and just starts a brewery. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few that come from the industry now. But
We're starting to see that more and more. In fact, it's kind of interesting, that we're seeing more people who have never homebrewed. It's just wild. And they're great brewers.
Yeah.
But they've never homebrewed.
Yeah.
It's just wild. Which
Yeah.
I get. I mean, when you brew all day, it's, I don't homebrew a ton. Because all my recipes are here.
yeah.
But still, we're getting back. I'm getting back to it.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Just to do it?
Yeah, just to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a playground anymore. My systems are so big.
Right.
So
Well-
I want like a small automated one-barrel brewery. But it's
No.
got to be automated because with my boys, I don't have 12 hours to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
And back. So, yeah. But yeah, I was a home brewer, and then I had exposure to the industry through my work as an attorney. And I knew at the end of the day that this was, and just because I'm a craft brewer, and I brewed at home for so long, I was very, very involved in any aspect of the industry I could find information on. So I would go to meetings. I'd crash CBC when it was here and down in Portland, and you can never know what you're getting into until you're already into it. But I knew enough to know that this is a community that cared about craft, a community that cared about excellence, and it's something that I'm deeply passionate about. I like the intersections of agriculture, coming from a farming background in Texas.
Okay.
I like that I interact with and it's why I started the Kiwichi, hop project, and why we got involved in it. And are continuing to expand our organic offerings. Hopefully we can have an organic farm to add to it, and our grain work, because this industry allows you to intersect with agriculture in a very meaningful way, and I like that. And then really the third, I think, motivator was having children. being a full-time attorney is not something that's truly conducive to what I would consider being an involved father.
Right.
In other words, I want to be the one who's at school volunteering when I can. I want to be the one who take my children to work, equally with my wife. And you can't expect that of your clients. You can't ask a client to give me a couple hours off or that you have an emergency. So, because you charge them too much.
Yeah.
And that's the industry.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that working out. And owning our own business seemed like a perfect way to combine all those. And just the idea that we're in the middle of the worst recession since the Great Depression, that just made it that much more desperate, which is a hell of a motivator. Yeah.
That's good.
People start companies, start breweries with a lot of money behind them at this time, and I'm like, man, why do you get up every day?
Yeah.
Like, I got up on Monday so I could pay the mortgage on Tuesday, keep the lights on and pay the rent on Wednesday, and
So
we've moved on.
Yeah. Now were the original recipes all yours?
And they still are.
They still are.
Yep. There are a couple recipes that aren't mine. But yeah, Summer is Matt Lincoln. It's my brewery spouse. We call each other's brewery wife, but I think more appropriate term is we're brewery spouse because we're just together all the time. But the Summer is his recipe, and then really it's a collaborative thing. But yeah, the recipes, the vast majority, all start off as my recipes.
Okay.
And then it's a collaborative approach. So I'll come up with a recipe. I'll come up with the ingredients, ABV. Finishing gravity, and then some descriptors for how I wanted the ultimate aroma and the flavor and the feel, color, clarity, that kind of thing, and then bring it to our team.
Okay.
And everybody then starts digging into it, adding a little bit, change the mash temp, maybe change some of the hop ratios, the additions, etc. And it's a collaborative effort at that point.
Nice.
To get to the vision.
Okay. So even though you're not brewing, you're still very much involved.
Yep. I don't think that, yes, they're my recipes.
Right.
But I think any brewer who says that it's only them, it's just not telling you the whole story. And more than that, that's the point of good beer. Good beer takes an entire team. The fact that I come up with the concept and the recipe and the ingredients at first and put it together in a ratio, that's one part of the recipe. But as important as that are our guys over there in packaging right now, Chris and Sam and the team, because they have as important a role as that recipe creation. So it really is, the fun part of this is beer matters because team matters. And it's really all of us that work on a daily basis to make the high quality, consistent beer that we do.
Nice. So how did the Cowiche project start?
The Cowiche project?
Cowiche?
Itchy cow.
Cowiche.
Itchy cow. The Cowiche project started by two influences coming together. It's just we had put out, my wife and I started to put out, this call for organic hops. It was very difficult at the time because the law was the old law, where you could publish or you could sell beer labeled as organic without using organic hops. And we were finding it very difficult to find quality hops of any diversity that were organic. And we started off as an all-organic brewery. And then at the same time, the Britt family, Ron, and the Carpenters and a couple other hop growing families had generated this idea that they wanted to push the boundaries of organic hop growing. The difficulty being that we had these old laws, so there's no motivation for brewers to use these hops because they were difficult to find. They weren't that, frankly, very good. And there weren't that many varieties available. And there was no requirement. So as far as the consumer knew, they were all the same.
Okay.
You and I you could use them, I could not. We both got to use organic. So they wanted to change that dynamic. We found each other. They actually contacted us. And we started telling each other about our dreams, and then we became founding members of the American Organic Hop Growers Association, AOGA. It's a great acronym there, AOGA. And at the time, our executive director was Megan Quinn, who is now the CEO of Bellbreaker Brewing Company out of Yakima. Our goal was with AOGA was severalfold, but initially one of the first focuses was to lobby the FDA and change that code. So if you were going to sell beers organic, you had to use organic hops. We still feel the same as we do then, which is it's deceptive to do otherwise. But we met with so much resistance in this industry.
Really?
There's still parts of the organic brewing industry who despise Fremont Brewing Company because we pushed it really hard, and I still feel the same way today. So we were lucky. We were successful. My wife was the one on the company side who pushed that. She did the lobbying, the letter writing, and whatnot. And FDA changed the law, and there was a transitional period, and now it is the law, and we've seen an 8-fold increase in plantings and organic hops, actually more than that now, in Washington State.
Nice.
Which is phenomenal. You're seeing more and more offerings in this now. Out in Oregon, you're seeing more and more organic hop offerings from the Pacific Northwest. And that was really what the Koichi Project was about, to push this idea. The other concept at the same time, parallel concept, was to experiment with this idea of terroir for hops. And so we have a specific farm, singular brewery, right, and plantings. So the plantings were going to be a way to push the boundaries of organic hops. So we would use this as a way to test varieties of organic hop growing, because not all hop varieties are suitable for organic farming, as suitable as others, let me put it that way. So this project is a way to test those varieties, and at the same time test different methodologies of larger scale organic hop farming. Because if we're going to continue with this, you got to have some scalability.
Right.
It can't be all, touchy-feely. So that was what the project was all about. So is that testing ground, the varietal, testing, and change the law, while at the same time examining this concept of terroir. Is there significant, and we all believe the answer is yes, so we wanted to prove it, but I think testing is the more humble way to say it. And now after 6 years, I can tell you, from my perspective and from all of our farmers' perspective, it's 100% yes. We have, from our perspective, you guys can go through under the door. Yeah. We have 100% proved terroir. I can give you those. Well, now we have Citra, Simcoe, Equinox, and Mosaic hops from the Koichi Canyon, from that land, and put them side by side with those same 4 hops conventionally grown from another plot, and they will be so different as to make you question whether or not it's the same beer.
Really?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's truly, truly phenomenal.
Better flavor?
I don't.
Different?
Yeah. What's better for me, is it better for you? I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure the two of you have similar tastes, but also diverge. I think people are fools for not drinking Saison all year round as the principal beer they drink. But there are a few people who would think that's the better beer if I sat down and gave you can have one of my Saisons, like a 3% table beer, or my 6% IPA. 99% of the people will pick IPA because that's a better flavor. Yeah. No, it's just different. That's the point. It's just different. So, I avoid all the better, worse kind of stuff. It's just different. For example, we have, the hops that are phenomenal today. Amarillo is a relatively new varietal, but, look at Simcoe. It's not really a new hop. It was just not, the market wasn't ready for it. The market was not ready for that flavor, period. So it was an outlier. It was funky and weird and not cool. Comet was another one. It was just too much, man. And now that's all the people want. More Citra, more Mosaic, more whatever. Things change. It's not better for worse. It's just, is that what you think is quality? Nonetheless, I think we've absolutely proved that terroir does exist in hops.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So you primarily can your beer Did you make that decision
Day one.
from an environmental standpoint, or?
Well, from two different perspectives.
Okay.
One, yes, sustainability principles, thinking 7 generations ahead, taking responsibility for our actions, not just for our children, but for the children's children and on down the road, but also for ourselves. I think you act morally and ethically on a daily basis because you're a moral and ethical person, or you don't. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we're not adults. We aren't faced with choices, and we're not perfect. But you have those. I have those goals set out from day one, and I hope to achieve most of them on a yearly basis. And when we don't, we start over. And that was the thing with cans. I didn't can my beer for the first couple of years. I simply couldn't afford to. Mm-hmm. And there weren't mobile canners; didn't exist. And I simply didn't have the money. Couldn't afford the 24, pound minimum of ball at the time. The technology just didn't exist. Mm-hmm. So, but it was always part of our goal. And that was because I think it's the best thing to do for the environment, for all the transport reasons. You can fit 40% more cans on a truck than you can bottles. Mm-hmm. I think this argument about which is a better container is, Moebius loop. You can go around and around depending on where you start. Nonetheless, from my perspective, cans are a much better alternative. At the end of the day, when you're drinking a beer out of a can, it's likely at least 60 to 80% recycled aluminum, whereas beer bottles are almost primarily new, all 100% new. Mm-hmm. And they're much easier to recycle. Right. Whereas glass is much more difficult to recycle. Right. But anyway, you can go around that argument so many times. But nonetheless, I think it proves itself as a just phenomenal choice from an environmental perspective, a sustainability and a closing the gap perspective. So that was clearly a driver. And now people, you can argue about it, but that was the driver for us. At the same time, I strongly felt, and still do feel to this day, that cans are better for beer than bottles for a whole host of reasons. But people who believe the opposite believe that with as much fervor as I do. Right. So that's an argument that can go back and forth, but that's why we started. Mm-hmm. I strongly believe that cans are better for my beer, and I think they're a better environmental choice, and that's why we started out. And we're not perfect, and we couldn't afford it for the first couple of years, but now we do. And we started off in a time when we're still proving, and I think we're still there at some point, in some markets with some stores. That good craft beer comes in cans. It's still, believe it or not, if you live in the bubble of a metro area that has long ago moved past that, believe it or not, we're still the vast minority of beer sales in this country are in cans. We still have a ways to go to actually make that case that good craft beer comes in cans. Yeah. But I think we're finding acceptance. And for example, the year-end numbers for all beer sold in grocery stores in the United States have just come in. And of those beers, the number 7 best-selling craft beer in a can is Fremont's Interurban IPA, which is remarkable because we're only sold in one state. Right. Every other beer on that top 15 list or more actually is sold in many, many markets. And Interurban now we're going to be sold in Oregon here in a couple weeks, but those cans are only available in Washington State, which is pretty phenomenal to be number 7.
That's a lot of cans of that beer.
That's a lot of cans of Interurban. Yeah. From a place where people said, you just can't sell a craft can. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we have a long ways to go, but we've proved that that's not the case.
So, kind of tied to that almost is Big Beer, and they've been on a somewhat of a buying spree lately. I mean, what's your opinion on what's happening in the industry?
I don't think we have time for that. Okay. For the whole opinion, it's really nuanced. It's a free market. Yeah. I think you can fall back too easily on the us versus them concept. Mm-hmm. But I think when you're really honest, businesses are in business for primarily, the benefit of the people who own it and the people that work there. So I think we're lying to ourselves if we looked at craft beer and thought it was anything different in the day. You're telling me that's not the case? I think without naming names, we can pick every business and point out how they have been anti-competitive, how they have got in it for the money, from the earliest pioneers in the brew pub movement. Really, this was a brew pub movement. If you can take your mind back to the 70s and the 80s, up through the mid-90s, this was a brew pub movement, not a brewery movement.
Right.
This model is relatively new. In fact, when we started this model, we're the only one. We're the only one in the entire state, and one of the only ones in the Northwest that had just a brewery with just a tap room. Nobody else did it. It was a brew pub model. And those brew pubs absolutely were out for themselves.
Yeah.
At the same time, it was a really small world, so there was a ton of collegiality. And I think that still exists to this day. But, I'm coming around to the point, which is that this is the cycle and the nature of business. Unfortunately, the other reality of that is that it changes this business. And what we have been able to enjoy is a culture in craft that has really been absent of the promise of great profit because it was just not possible.
Right.
Except for those people who got in, like Pete's Wicked Ale, and who really were. I mean, they were, or Jim at Boston Beer Company. I mean, great company. I respect the hell out of Jim Cook. But he's made a great deal of money off of it, and deservedly so. We should all admire his business acumen. But that wasn't the typical craft brewer, entrepreneur. They were doing it to make a little bit of money, enough to pay the bills and be part of this culture and live a lifestyle. That was our community. And there are people who are outliers and whatnot, but I just think that ultimately is what I mourn the most about big money coming in. You attract different people.
Sure.
If I told you, let's start a business, and you're not going to come within a half of your existing salary ever, if it'll take years and years, you got to be foolish and deeply passionate about this at the same time to want to do this. And that's what it's been like. I'm really not making the same salary I had when I left my law career. And I still consider myself the richest man I know. And it's just not about money.
Right.
But now it can be, quite frankly. We turn away offers, and it's really weird. I think it's changing the kind of people in this community. It's changing the competitive landscape of this community, this craft beer community. And I don't think for the better. So I'll leave it at that. I think it's everybody's choice and right to sell their company, and I certainly understand it. And I don't think it's appropriate to judge.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. You simply don't understand what they've been through, what their pressures are, what the business reality they're facing is. But it makes me think very soberly about the choices that we're making in this industry and what's going to happen. So I will say at the end of the day that our intention is never to sell. Okay. Our intention is to hold, and we do get very nice offers. But our intention is not to sell, because I think in doing so, unless it's done in the right way, and I don't see how that's done right now, you give away the culture of the people who have built the company up. And I think in time that has to happen. Every company will evolve and change. My wife and I won't be the ones who are ultimately, running this company, and that's going to radically change it. And it should. Stasis is death, in my opinion. So change is inevitable, but I want to ensure that the change holds sacred that dedication to great beer and great people. And I just don't see how selling out for pure capital interest does that right now. That we're in a position where we don't have to.
Right.
So I'm not going to judge other people's position.
Sure.
But on a very, much less esoteric note, a much more, clear note, fundamental note, the reality of it is right now for me is I'm finding it very difficult to get bourbon barrels. We're the second largest producer of bourbon aged beer in the Northwest, and we spend an enormous amount of time finding them, and I just was barely able to get it the same amount I had this year.
Wow.
For next year's release, and that's not a drop more.
Yeah.
And I'm paying a huge amount more
Yeah.
for it. And they're 40% more per barrel.
Wow.
And I don't want to pass that cost on to
Yeah.
our consumers, so I'm just making less money at it.
Yeah.
And the reason is Goose Island is buying up all the goddamn barrels, and that's
Yeah.
AB, and they have the resources that we just don't.
Yeah.
And they're doing it strategically, and you're a fool if you think they're not. And that's the reality that makes me angry. Not because they don't have the right to do so. I mean, I understand we live in a capitalist economy, and there are other people who would look at me and to be quite sober. I think, there are people who say, well, you buy 700, 1,000 barrels a year. That's fewer for smaller craft brewers. It's a fair point. But nothing on the scale. It wouldn't be a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of what they're doing, what Anheuser InBev is doing with Goose Island. And I think we're going to see the same with Elysium. The messianic dreams of those people are to have 10-barrel and Elysium be the beers that introduce everybody, to IPAs. And it's a foolish dream, and it won't happen, but that's their dream. And they have success. For example, we lost every single tap handle at the football stadium at CenturyLink.
Oh, really?
Every single one. It's an enormous amount of business for me. In what I consider not just business, but it's our damn home team, man. I pay for that stadium with my taxes, and I get lost.
Wow.
And Georgetown did too. You won't find Manny's except in a couple spots where Manny has personal relationships. And those are beers that people want. People want to drink Manny's at the game. People want to drink an Urban at the game, and they can't find it because we find all of Goose Island's and Elysian's beers. That's their strategy, is to buy the market so we don't have it. And they're going to do it more and more now that more breweries are selling out to them. So to come full circle on your question, what do I think about it? I think it's certainly their right. I understand it. I don't think craft brewers should be too quick to judge, but I think we also have to be real sober that it is an us against them thing. And their intent is, without question, unabashedly, to drive us out of business. And to buy up as much as they can if they can't. And they're having success at it. And the scary thing is they're not done. They're not done. There are many of my colleagues who I think would love to find that. And then there are people like Meg over at Golden Road. She's one of those new breed. She came in, all flash and dash and ego and trash, and sold this company after selling people on the idea of craft, which is total bullshit in my mind. I'm sure she's a fine person, and she's a great business person. The idea that she was making money off this craft community is complete bullshit, in my opinion. And she sold it off to AB, and now she's part of the winning team. And I don't like being in the craft community with people like that. It's her right.
Oh, sure.
It's our community. And you have people who take advantage of it and say that we're craft, and then use that legitimacy, that reality. I mean, this is passion for us. We do this because we like it. We believe it makes a difference. And to have parasitic people come in, that's really what's happening. That's the greatest tragedy of these sales. It's just, all of a sudden you're at a sauna, and it's a weird metaphor, but I think about this. You're at that sauna, it's like a bunch of folks hanging around, it's men and women, and everyone's just hanging out, and there's no weirdness. And then those weird people come in and, start looking at everybody, and you're like, oh, man, just leave. You're changing the whole vibe of our community. We're just really enjoying being here together in our weird, funky, odd community, and nobody's worried about stuff. The sauna one was a strange metaphor. But it is kind of like that thing. It's like, oh man, don't do this, sir. This. I think the door's not going to close. The future is. We're not going to revert. It's not going to go back to that. So it's just the future. It'll be what it is.
There's probably more people getting in the business simply for that.
There's no question about it. Yes, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And there are people who are in the business who, now are going to try to flip it to that. So, hey, man.
It is a business.
I think you're naive. It is a business. You're naive if you think it was anything other than that. But you're also not honest if you don't recognize that it really has been. And I think many of us still operate that way. So that's just the way it goes. Yeah.
One more question.
Sure.
How's the expansion project?
Good. It's as fun as any construction project. So anybody out there who's ever done any construction, you have the dream of the initial phase, the visioning, the passion, the excitement, the opportunity the potential to relieve all these pressures that we have. I mean, it's very difficult to run this facility now. There's a lot of pressures I don't like to put on people because the demand is very high for our beer, and so we really need to do this, and that's exciting to think about. We all get to ramp back a little bit more, have some better equipment. It's fun. Maybe not work, a 4-shift day. That's good. And then there's the reality of it. You get into the funding of it. You get it. So we just have all one bank. Home Street Bank is our loan funder and our revenue. And they're not a bank. They're our partner. And it's not legally, but they really are more than just a lender. There's a phenomenal relationship with Home Street. And I don't get any revenue, any bonus for it. It's just after my experience working with these banks, quote unquote, who are worthless for small business, to find Home Street, I'm unabashedly on their side. They really have been phenomenal to work with through some trying times for this company. Nonetheless, financing is never the funnest thing you do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a brewer. I'd be in finance. It's not my thing, my passion. And then the construction, which is awesome and fun. It's a ton of fun to go out and spend millions of dollars and buy really rad German, breweries. God, that's fun. And then there's the construction deadline, which always falls behind and is more expensive, and you got to wring people by the neck, even though you're paying them a lot of money. I find myself at the end of the day, Matt and I have done the construction, every bit of the construction, from hand digging all the initial trench drains to building the brewery myself with my own hands, doing the plumbing, to then working side by side with my plumbers and electricians, to Matt and I doing that, to Matt and I doing all the project management and all the sourcing. This is too big for us to do that, but we find ourselves still, even though at this scale, we still have to be as involved, and it just makes sense. Yeah. But it's sometimes frustrating that we still have to wring people's neck to stay on time and on schedule and on budget. So I feel better.
Yeah. But
so that's the construction project. I love it and I hate it, and I'm really excited for it to be finished, so I can start my next one.
All right.
We've been in construction for every day since the day we started, and I hope we stay that way for quite a while. Because it's like my Sisyphean task. I like having the boulder to push up the hill, because it's a sign of continued growth. But I love to see. Hopefully, when we'll get the equipment in February, we're going to do just some rolling open houses, just let people see it. It's fun. Yeah, so we'll make sure we invite you.
You're going to have one of the biggest potential breweries in the state then, right?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, which is pretty exciting. Well, it's the largest independent brewery in the state.
It will be, yes. Other than the Red Hooks.
It's not an independent brewery. Yeah. That's why we say independent.
Yeah. And you are...
Because Red Hook's owned by an Oregon company, Craft Brewers Alliance, so it's not an independent brewery. And InBev, I don't count, or Elysian as they used to be called. But my friends Elysian, the brewery that I knew and supported and grew up with, they don't exist anymore. That brewery's gone. InBev is now here, and they don't count. So there you go. Fremont is the largest. It's Fremont and Georgetown and Mac and Jack. Yeah, those are the three.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pretty fun.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Likewise. Appreciate your time. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
But one last note.
Yes.
On the big size. It's kind of like being big in Japan. We may have the biggest, one of the biggest breweries in the state, or whatever it's going to end up being. But 1 or 1 million barrels, I think the dedication is the same. You can make the best beer or the worst beer. And it depends on that core thing. Do you believe that beer matters? Do you believe that beer matters? Beer has to matter to you in every aspect of the organization, from your passion to create a recipe for the recipe's sake itself, not to fit a niche, not to uphold a market trend, not to exploit some kind of little blip of, orange beers or passion fruit beers or pumpkin beers, whatever the hell is happening right now. It's hot and moving and active. Because you believe in it as a brewer, it's something that you will stand behind. I think you got to start there as a brewer. and then you have to have it all the way through. So the size is, for us, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is not that we're the biggest or the smallest. What's relevant is that throughout this organization, if we are to grow successfully into this, it's not that we'll grow into the size of the brewery, it's that we will successfully translate our passion for excellence, quality, and consistency on a daily basis to the expanded production facility. That's really what the growth means. And so far, I'm very happy with where we are and what we do. And our lab program, our shelf life, the guys over here, you want to see like the hardest people to satisfy is our packaging line, because they're the last defense. And they know, they're fully trained and know what good beer tastes like, knows when it's out of spec, and it's very uncomfortable when you're on a hard production schedule and those guys say, no, the beer's not ready. And, you look at that and you're like, it ripples through the organization, and I just smile. I'm like, goddamn right, man. Goddamn right, because you should be proud of what you do, and if it's not going to meet your standard in the packaging line, you should say no, because you're not going to stand behind it. Because they go to the grocery store every day, and they're like, man, I did that. Yeah. So that's what the size means for us. If we're to be successful, it's not that we're the biggest, because that's just sales. Right. And fuck that, honestly. We're not here to just sell a ton of beer. We're here to make sure that our passion translates throughout whatever size of company we run. And that's really the fun and the challenge.
Awesome.
Because beer matters.
Because beer matters. Thank you again.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much to Matt for taking the time out to talk with us. He said that his time is very valuable, and he was kind enough to give us that time. And Fremont was a great place to hang out, too. So
very cool place.
Very cool. So we will be right back after a local music break from Mother Crone.
Right now, the anointed
gmail.com. If you want to have your music played on Northwest Brew Talk, contact us today. And now let's try another beer. This time we have Issaquah Brewery's White Frog Ale.
Brewed with spices.
Always important to have spices. The Issaquah Brew House is located in Issaquah, obviously, and open 7 days a week. Their White Frog Ale is 5.2% ABV, 13 IBUs with an untapped rating of 3.56. Aromas of coriander and orange spice dominate the nose, a very light mouthfeel and countered with sweet orange peel, coriander, and subtle notes of chamomile. It finishes with delicate banana and clove spices.
Wow, that's pretty good. It's got a good. It's almost the same color as the one from Reuben's Brews, but it's just a little cloudier. But it's got a great smell and taste it. It's got a nice flavor.
Wow, yes, that flavor is interesting.
Well, you name some of the things, but they have all 13 ingredients listed on the label.
Kind of odd for a beer.
Yep. Sterling hops, Pilsen malt, wheat, flaked oats, flaked rye, coriander, sweet orange peel, chamomile, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, mountain water, and Belgian wit beer yeast. Pretty good. Very light. I like it.
I want you to give me fresh beer.
Fresh
You serious?
Beer is now! Georgetown Brewing. Lil Rita is more aggressively hopped and lighter bodied than Lovely Rita. No Centennial hops this time. Instead, we used Mosaic, Cascade, Simcoe, and Citra. Peachy, piney, fruity, and tropical notes hit your nose with a little sweetness on the tongue, but a dry finish. Why is it Lil? Because it's only 8.3%.
Wow. Okay. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Northwest Brew Talk.
Make sure to tune in next week when we have live in-studio guests.
That's going to be the first time we do that. It should be fun. And this show is produced and edited by me with engineering help from Michelle Rizzo.
If you want to contact us, you can email us at nwbrewtalk@gmail.com or on Twitter at nwbrewtalk. Our theme music is from Gilbert Neal at gilbertneal.com.
Until next time, I'm Mike Rizzo.
And I'm Michelle Rizzo.
Stay hoppy, my friends. What is it?
This.
Why don't you say what the beer is? You have to announce the beer before I open.
Last weekend at Strange Brewfest, as voted on with your tokens, first placed, with me.
Keep drinking. Chugga, chugga, chugga.